Hello, and welcome to the Sugar Bell Review, a program dedicated to learning about the people, places, and policies that make up the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek community. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tonight we have with us Rebecca Perry. She is from the Department of Natural Resources in Ohio, and she works with Aaron Rourke, correct? Who we've had as an interviewee with Hope Taft not too long ago.
Yes.
So could you help me remember what your actual title is?
Okay, so I am the Stream Quality Monitoring Coordinator for the Ohio Scenic Rivers Program for the Southwest region. So I'm in charge of the Little Miami River and the Stillwater-Greenville Creek system, which are the scenic rivers in this part of the state.
And water quality, that's making sure that essentially the river system is healthy.
Correct, yes.
Okay. So you just make sure that nobody's polluting it or that there isn't...
Well, my job basically is to coordinate the volunteer monitoring program that we have.
Okay.
And that basically, we check the water quality by assessing the macroinvertebrate populations.
Okay. All right. So that is the training program that you guys do, that we went through with you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you essentially do that all over, well, not as much since COVID, but.
Right. We normally conduct workshops in a normal season. This is a program that we rely on our volunteer involvement, and that's a way for us to not only provide educational outreach as to what makes a clean river, what makes a river healthy, but it also allows us to train volunteers to monitor some of our reference sites for us. We have 14 reference sites on Little Miami, and we have a total of 11 up on the Stillwater-Greenville Creek system. So volunteers will agree to adopt one of those reference sites in order to monitor water quality basically through macroinvertebrates. I think you have a video you're going to show.
Yeah, we'll make sure that all the pictures are up and behind us as we talk. So
okay,
we'll have that nifty little chart you showed us.
So normally we would lead workshops that would allow us to do that. Unfortunately, I've been unable to do that due to COVID. So.
So let's talk a little bit more about essentially what we had the pleasure of being a part of when you did your little demo for us. So a stream quality monitoring test site, and the way you tested it with us. Can you walk us through the program or how it would work? Because again, we'll have the video that people can watch while we talk. So the first step was the
first thing we do is we want to check the suspended solids, the total suspended solids in the stream. That's a measurement of turbidity, which basically will measure things like sediment and other particles in the water. So if you look at the water and it's cloudy, those are the suspended solids.
So that's the flowing water?
That's the flowing water, yes. The riffle is the part that we monitor. The riffle is the part where the water is breaking over the rocks, creating the ripples that you'll see.
Okay. And so then you use the tube. What was the name of the tube?
Okay, the tube is called the Ohio Sediment Stick, and it was created by the Lake County Soil and Water District to be a very low-tech, low-cost way of measuring turbidity, so we don't have to have any fancy equipment to do that. And it's actually pretty accurate compared to some of the equipment that, say, someone from like the EPA would use to monitor the sediment.
Now, if I remember correctly, you put it in the water and then you kind of spin it around, right?
Correct.
So that you actually get the flow into the tube without getting any air. You let the air out, and that's when you pull it out of the water.
Pull it out of the water.
And you look for the dot, right?
Yes. You pour out the water.
Okay.
It's got the measurements on the side and measured in inches. Okay. So you pour the water out bit by bit, and you keep looking in until you can see the black dot in the bottom. And when you can see the black dot, then you look at your tube and you determine, what measurement in inches, say like 20 inches of water, you can see the dot. And then we have a handy dandy conversion chart that allows us to then determine based on
an average,
20 inches what the actual sediment load is in the water at that point in time.
Oh, cool.
So we take 2 of those measurements and we average the measurement.
And that is what would be going in the records for the stream quality
Correct.
assessment for that?
For that location at that particular point in time, yes.
Okay. And why do you check for the turbidity? What is the purpose of making sure how cloudy the water is or how much
because
is
what
in it?
people don't realize is that sediment can actually be a contaminant in water. You don't normally think of soil as being a contaminant, but if you have too much sediment in the water, say you've got very cloudy water, filled with silt or what have you, and it's flowing rapidly, that's going to decrease the amount of oxygen that's able to be taken in by the animals that live there, the fish and the macroinvertebrates and all of the little things at the bottom of the food chain. It also can cause problems, gets into their gills. It can actually damage the biodiversity in a stream system.
So essentially, too much dirt can hurt.
It can, absolutely. I like that. I'll have to use that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, well then the next step had to do with actually finding the macroinvertebrates at different places within the river. And I think we started with the riffle, right?
Right, we measure the riffle. We tell people that you want to measure different areas of the riffle. The riffle, we measure that because it is the highly oxygenated part of the stream.
Okay.
And most of the little critters that we're looking at, which tend to be, they're the larval forms of insects, they're things like crayfish. When I talk about macroinvertebrates, specifically aquatic macroinvertebrates, I'm talking about, aquatic being lives in the water, macro, large enough to be seen with the naked eye, and invertebrate lacks a backbone. So, things.
Although I will say, some of those little guys were almost too small to see.
They can be really tiny, yeah. You do have to use a hand lens, especially when you're my age and you forget your reading glasses, so for sure. But so where was I?
So we were, the reason with the macroinvertebrates and what they are and why you go to the middle of the riffle.
Oh yeah, okay, because they require a lot of oxygen to live, so that's why we measure the middle of the riffle. We also want to measure the things that are maybe on the edge of the riffle or located in some vegetation in the riffle, because you're going to get different creatures that live in different microhabitats within that same riffle. So we want to get a big picture of the biodiversity in the entire riffle.
In that assessment area.
In that assessment area. So we take 3 measurements.
Okay. Now I remember there was something fun about taking the actual measurement. You had to go out with the net, right? And you had to put the net in the ground to sort of block it up to make sure that everything would hit it and not either go over the top of the net or go under it. But then you do something in order to try and stir up the rocks. What did you guys call that?
Okay, we call it here on Little Miami, we call it the Little Miami Shuffle. So basically we are taking a 3-foot by 3-foot area in front of that net, and we're kicking and twisting and digging our toes in to try to disturb that sediment to turn over the rocks and get all those little bugs and creatures that are living in those rocks actually to go into the net with the flow of the water. So it looks kind of like we're doing the twist or some other funny YouTube dance or something. But don't wear
flip-flops if you volunteer.
Yeah.
Make sure you got some good heavy-duty shoes.
We really request that people wear closed-toed shoes when they come to one of our workshops, because it can kind of hurt to stub a toe on a rock, and sometimes you might step on something that's a little painful. So it's always a good idea to wear closed-toed shoes.
Yes, that was the one mistake I think we made. We were like, oh, I can't help with that step. I have flip-flops on. So that was definitely a good to note if you plan on volunteering, is footwear is important.
We try to tell people when we advertise our workshops, we kind of give them the heads up as to the things that they would want to bring. Typically, clothes you can get wet in, because you'll probably get at least a little bit wet, and then closed-toed shoes to protect your feet.
So once we've done the shuffle and all of that stuff has been kicked up and disturbed, and you've got the net, you roll the net up, right?
Right.
And then we took it back to shore and laid it out, and that's where the fun began, right?
Yep. Okay. That's my favorite part.
It was Alexis's favorite part too.
She did great.
She really got into looking for those little itty bitty things in there. So what are the kinds of things that you guys look for? We'll have the chart available so viewers can see it while we talk, but in terms of naming them, what are some of the creatures that represent the different qualities of the river?
So we divide our macroinvertebrates into 3 sensitivity groups. Group 1 are organisms that are highly sensitive to pollution. They can't tolerate pollution really in any way, shape, or form. Things like your caddisfly larvae, your mayfly larvae, your guild snails, your hellgrammites, some of those very sensitive creatures. We know that if we find some of those, that water is very clean. And in the case of, say, a helgramite, which is the larval form of a Dobson fly, some of those can live in the riffle for 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
So if you find a really big one of those, that water has been very clean for probably at least 3 years, because you've found one that's that big in that location, which is kind of cool. Our group 2 macroinvertebrates, those are things like your crayfish and your dragonfly and damselfly nymphs. I think we've got, I'm trying to think, group 2s. We got scuds and sow bugs, things like that. They can tolerate a little bit of pollution, but they still require fairly clean water. So it's good to find a good number of those as well. Our group 3s, they can live anywhere. These are things like your leeches and your aquatic worms, your black fly larvae. But I always tell people, they're not bad to find. We actually want to find some of them. We just don't want to find only group 3 organisms. We want to find something pretty much from all of the different levels, because the more biodiversity you have in your sample, that river is not only clean, but it's also very healthy from a food web standpoint, because all of those little creatures, they are the bottom of the food chain, and so the more biodiversity you have at the bottom, the more biodiversity you're going to have all the way up the chain in the form of fish and the mammals that come to the stream, and the birds that fly over and they visit the water, things like eagles that will actually take fish out of the water. It's important to have those lower level organisms in a stream.
Oh, that's one of the reasons why the water quality management is so important, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what did we find? I think we found quite a few from group 1.
We did, yes. We found a lot of caddisflies. That's pretty much the predominant that we'll find. Okay. And this time of year, they're very small, so those were some of the little teeny tiny ones that that I always tell people when they start volunteering, they're a little intimidated by, how am I ever going to learn all those little teeny tiny things? It truly is something that you do it a few times, and you just know by looking at it and the way it moves and the form of its body, you can tell what it is without really having to scrutinize it too much. But there's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's pretty easy once you do it a few times.
I think we found some snails.
Found some snails, and those were the gilled snails. So we have 2 kinds of snails. Okay. Gilled snails are the ones that require very clean water. There are group 1s. Think of gills, gills need lots of oxygen. Yeah. Versus our pouch snails in group 3. Those you can live just about any place. They're called lung snails. They don't actually have gills, so that they can take in oxygen in other ways, and they're not impacted as much by pollution.
And I think we found at least one good size, was it dragonfly nymph?
We found a couple of teeny tiny dragonfly nymphs, but we found a lot of damselfly nymphs, which they're kind of cousins. But that's one of the reasons we sampled the vegetated areas, so the place where we had a little bit of that water willow growing, because they cling to the vegetation. So when they're there, they're laying in their eggs and such. The damselflies will use the end of their abdomen to slice a hole in the vegetation, and that's where they deposit their eggs. So sampling something that has the vegetation allows us to get that biodiversity that you wouldn't maybe find in the middle of the riffle. So.
Well, it was really exciting, and it was certainly fascinating to see it's simplistic, all things considered, the way that we just kicked up the rock. We looked at what was in the net, a couple of different places, and just gauged the number of insect life we found in those 3 tests. Yep. And it's a fairly, you said, good look at the health of the stream, which again, as you said, is also very important for the health of other animals and the things that use the river. So it sounds like it's something that would be pretty fun and easy to get into if someone was interested.
It is, and that's one of the benefits of the program. It's been in action since 1983 on most of our rivers. So we have over 30 years worth of data on some of the rivers we monitor, including the Little Miami. And it's those citizen scientists that learn how to do this are invaluable in allowing us to follow the trends of the health of the river over time. It's low cost. It's easy to learn. Anybody can learn it. You don't have to be a scientist. And it is fun. It's a good time for people of all ages. Anybody can do it.
I can guarantee that it was fun. We enjoyed it so much. And we enjoyed having you come on the show as well to sort of tell us a little bit how our river is monitored in terms of its health. So we really appreciate you taking the time tonight to come out and chat with us. And we hope that everyone out there had just as much fun learning about it and enjoying the videos of us trying to learn how to become citizen scientists ourselves. So we definitely will make sure there is contact information if you are interested in the program and want to learn some more. And we hope that you take the opportunity to, because it was a lot of fun. So.
Could I tell a little bit about, we have
Sure.
an activity book that has just been produced by the Scenic Rivers Program, and you can find it on the ODNR website.
Okay.
And you can go to, you can either Google Ohio Scenic Rivers Program and there's a download to that right there.
Okay.
Or you can go to the Ohio DNR page and go through the Department of Natural Areas and Preserves, which is our parent organization.
Sure.
And you can find it through that as well. We also have a lot of videos on their YouTube channel if you want to learn how to do SQM and kind of get the gist of some other water quality issues without having to go to a workshop until we're able to have those again.
We will make sure that all of that contact information
Awesome.
is available on the interview so that
Okay.
people can contact and
Great.
learn a little bit more, because this was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. I had fun too.
Good. Well, we hope everybody else did, and we hope you have a wonderful, phenomenal evening, and we will catch you all in the next episode.